Hi, everyone. It's Sarah from Sarah Knows Support Workers. Today, I've got Josh. Now, Josh, the little secret is I've actually seen you present before. So the idea that I got you on the podcast today to talk about ways we can improve our businesses in the NDIS sector, I'm thrilled. So let's get cracking. What do you reckon?
Yep, looking forward to it.
All right, let's go. So what led you into the disability support space and how did you find this path to becoming a director at Resolv?
Yeah, it's a funny question, and it's the first time anyone has ever asked me that. I came into disability from quite a weird angle. So, like the majority of people that I encounter came into this space for very specific reasons. They either felt a specific calling, or normally it's because they've had somebody in their life with a disability, and that's what's led them to get involved in this space. For me personally, I came into it very, very differently. I got started in disability because my friend was working at a disability software provider. So I got into disability because I wanted to work with my friend, which is a very, very unusual way to come into this industry. So, like forever, I'll forever feel like an outsider within this industry. And sometimes I think that's a good thing to have people that come in and provide a different perspective. So yeah, always hearing people's very impassioned reasons for coming into this space. Again, I always feel like a little bit of imposter here, and that's how it's always going to be. And I think that's a good thing. So,
Are you guys still friends?
yes, or actually, he's one of the other directors of Resolve. So yes, we've been friends for about 20 years, and yes, continued.
So before you got to Resolv, you've had a multiple different roles in your career, and one of that being project management and some big picture government strategy stuff. Bear with me, it's not my sector. How did you use all the experiences that you had previously to what you do today?
Yeah, so I think that's what I was talking about. Where sometimes I think it's valuable to um, have people in the industry that come at it from very different directions. So I've had not a very targeted career. I was never one of those like people in high school that knew what they were going to do. I was always so jealous and continued to be jealous of those people that knew where they were going to go because I've never really worked it out myself. Um, I think it's been very helpful to see a lot of different industries and government, and then be able to take a lot of those lessons and apply them into this specific space. And that's even how Resolve came to be born, in terms of through our experience at Lumri, a disability software provider, and working with a lot of different providers, like SIL providers, we could see certain issues and different ways to solve them. And a lot of that became because we're exposed to a lot of different ways of solving issues and weren't really looking at it through a specific lens of disability industry, if that makes sense.
Yep. So was there a moment when you realized this sector needed a better system? What was the
Sorry.
moment when you realized this sector needed better systems?
Yeah, I think in a lot of cases, it wasn't necessarily about better systems. I think it was about a different way of doing things. So the angle that we come at it is really around. So my experience I'll talk about was from a SIL provider perspective, because that's what we do. And I think through probably the last 7 or 8 years working with SIL providers, it was actually the solution here wasn't it wasn't a better system. It wasn't more training. It actually required a different type of thinking and a different type of approach to actually solve the fundamental problems that exist within SIL.
Yeah. Yeah, it is an eye opener still.
Yes.
And I think the reason why I find your business so intriguing is because I'm an ex-rosterer. So
But that's good. But that's who we love to help, is the operational people and rosterers, because
yeah,
you're trying to solve a problem. You're trying to solve a puzzle that's missing about 10 or 20 pieces. You know what I mean? In terms, a
I
lot of it is trying to make people feel easy about it. So, you know,
admit that I have cried into cheeseburgers over rosters.
I can
I have, and I will always admit that. When it comes to leadership, so when people hear the word leadership and imagine bosses in offices, but in your world, leadership looks a little bit different. How do you define leadership in the disability support services and SEALs in your operation?
Yeah, I think leadership in disability is very different to what that means in other industries, um, because of the nature of the people you're serving, the nature of the people of the work, but also because of the industry itself. I think the biggest thing for me from a leadership perspective, when I look at particularly SIL providers, is kindness to themselves and their team. In that, what what we're trying to achieve in SIL, and it doesn't matter the support worker all the way up, rosterers, whoever, is what you're trying to do is so bloody hard. Like it is impossible to get right. And leadership for me is recognizing that you're operating within a difficult and flawed system, and it's always going to be really hard to get it right. And so I think kindness and generosity to everyone, that we're working in a very difficult system. We're never going to be able to get it right. And we need to support each other to make sure that we're delivering the best outcomes for why we're all here, which is the people that we're providing support to.
With leadership, did you fall into leadership or was there a strategy in?
No, there's rarely like I said, I've never really been one that's gone after a specific direction. I've just always looked at the problems that were in front of me and tried to solve them. I've always been like a problem solver. So, like again, sometimes leadership is just like where we end up, but I've always come from the approach that whatever I'm doing, and again, I don't make like I don't head in a specific direction, but it's like wherever I'm there, I'm looking for problems to solve, and I love solving problems. Sometimes that means I'm in a leadership position to do that.
So with Resolv, it's not just handing over a report, because a report is only so much. And like you said, you love a problem and so do I. How do you dive into it? Because it's not just like report writing, it's also about the team as well that provides the care for the people that we serve.
No, 100%. And like we're 3 years in now, and I still find it hard to explain exactly what it is, what it is that Resolve does. But yeah, it's definitely not a report or training. So Resolve is three of us, myself, Rick, the friend I was talking about, and Adam, who's the third founder of Resolve. Adam started as a support worker in SIL and went on a very long journey, so became a team leader and all the rest of it. But before joining Resolve, he had a consultancy where he'd work with SIL providers, training them on his exact approach, providing all the guidance, and then moving on to the next. And what he was finding was that providers weren't able to keep up with the magnitude of change because, like as you well know, even before we talk about scheduling, which is its own nightmare, but creating a roster for a SIL house in a shared funding environment is extremely difficult and always requires constant upkeep. And so that's why Resolve became what we are in terms of when we looked at the particular problem, the solution wasn't another software solution out there. It wasn't training or consultancy. Is what still providers needed was someone that's down in the weeds with them to actually help solve their problems. And so that's how we operate is we develop the rosters with the team leaders. So the people that are directly providing the support that really understand the rhythms of the house, we develop a roster in collaboration with them that is also respectful of the amount of funding available. Because at the end of the day, we're all bound by a certain set of rules which the NDIA has provided. So we work with them to develop a roster that makes sense from a funding perspective, that respects the needs of the people in the house, and is also attractive to support workers. I'm sure you could make some sort of mathematically perfect roster that's a bunch of 3-hour shifts, but no one wants to do that. So it's about respecting those three things and then also working with them across the whole journey so that we can make sure that we're claiming correctly every single week, because it's those two areas where we really see. So we work with providers for the long term. We become part of their business. And what we try to do is work throughout that organization to add a couple of those missing pieces to the puzzle that I was talking about, because SIL providers across the board are trying to solve an impossible problem.
Do you think a lot of it is because you're external, you get to pull away from the things, like all the crap that gets in front of it? Like sometimes I feel like when you roster, there's things that get in front of you that aren't really an issue, but if you're looking at it externally, they're not going to be your issue because you're able to see the problems and the gaps that they have.
Yeah, 100%. So basically fundamentally, when we look at SIL providers, and we've been invited by over 200 providers now to look at their rostering and claiming, in almost every single instance, they're having significant issues, and we're able to solve for that. So why are we able to solve for that when we work together, as opposed to a SIL provider doing it by themselves. And it's exactly what you're talking about. We're able to focus just on SIL rostering and claiming. It doesn't matter where you are in an organization, you're always going to get pulled in a million different directions. We're able to focus really on the rostering and claiming aspect. We're not having to deal with a lot of the other noise. We can just deal in solving the problem, and then take those solutions to then work collaboratively with the provider to put them in place. And so, yeah, you couldn't have nailed it better. It's being able to sit outside and be able to work on those problems without all the distractions and getting pulled in all the directions, doing a lot of that work, and then being able to have a conversation with like 95% of the job done, and allowing providers then to make the right decisions based on that information.
I feel like as providers, we tend to put our hearts first. So we will put that extra hour in. That person needs a little bit of more support without reflecting back that it never matched the rock. And we got ourselves into some strife because we're nice people.
That's fine, but sometimes being a nice person then ends up
Doesn't,
costing the organization hundreds of
yeah,
thousands of dollars, which then prevents you from actually truly helping people, if you know
yeah,
what I mean. And so
yeah.
there's definitely situations, and there's definitely a time and place for providing additional support over and above the plan, and we very much encourage it in a lot of situations. But it has to be a conscious decision, if that makes sense, in terms of, okay, we're making this decision, and we're respectful that it's going to cost this much to the organization, and knowing all that, we're still going to do it, as opposed to, well, we just need to add a couple extra shifts here for various reasons.
It's such a skill set to put it together. And especially with the amount of churn that our sector goes through, there's a lot of people that
Yes.
come in and out. So the people that you were supporting last year might be a different house leader this year. So it's that consistency. And then I feel like as a sector, we're not very good with building up the professionalism of getting it to that point where somebody can take over quite easily and become the next house leader
Well,
and
it's
learn these
impossible.
skills.
Well, it's really hard to do that because of the churn, if that
Yeah.
makes sense, in terms of, and so that's another area where we're able to help providers, because Resolv is always there. So we're going to be able to provide a consistent process so that inevitably when people move out of an organization, we're going to be there to support the new people that come in with an established process that's going to take away some of the more painful aspects of what they're doing and allow them just to focus on what's core to what they're trying to achieve.
So while we're here, let's talk about rosters because this is a spot for me. Lots of providers see rostering as admin, but why is it known your roster actually does require elements of leadership and skill sets?
Yeah, so I think it's so critical to be able to understand your roster and to ensure that that roster's fitting within the funding available. Because as soon as the roster is not correct, as in it's not matching the funding available, then it can only be one of two things. It's either non-compliant, as in you're not in line with the funding available, so you're actually like providing below you're under servicing, sorry, or you're over servicing. So sorry, you're not non-compliant. Sorry, you're under servicing to the funding they're available. So you're actually disadvantaging the participant in a lot of cases, or you're over servicing and costing the organization money. So like getting that core roster right is so essential, because on the other side, the roster is driving the claiming, which
Yep.
then can lead to non-compliance and can also directly impact the participant. So for example, let's say there's $10,000 a week of funding for a participant. However, the roster's only 8,000, you're claiming 8,000. Well, by the time you get to the end of the plan, there's still a bunch of money sitting there that should have actually been support for the participant. And then it actually gets worse, is that when that plan becomes to be reevaluated, in a lot of cases, well, then that amount's going to be taken out because it's, well, obviously this person needed that money. So it's so critical. The rostering and claiming is actually like a really fundamental part and can have significant impact on the participant themselves if we don't get it right. And so yeah, it's just such an essential piece, and actually has direct ramifications to the person, not to mention the actual the roster's the vehicle for the day-to-day support for the person. So it's so important that you actually get that right it sits within their funding, and also it's respectful of the rhythms of that specific house.
I feel like no day would be the same for you. And the reason why I say that is because when you enter into a new service or a new house and you see the roster and you're matching it against a rock, and does your mind explode like this is the problem that I've got?
Yeah, 100%. And I think one thing that a lot of people aren't aware of is how much change occurs within a SIL house. So, in terms of within a SIL house, it's not like you set a roster at the start of the year and then that's there's nothing more to do. So many things can occur which leads to the roster needing to change. And so, this is another problem which a lot of providers have is just being able to keep. So, it's hard enough to get the roster right, but the volume of changes that occur and every time a change occurs requires a new roster. So if a new person comes into the house or a person leaves, okay, we need a new roster. If the funding changes for one of the people in the house, we need a new roster. If the care needs change, the CP schedules change, we need a new roster. So there's so many different events that lead to rosters requiring adjustments. And then obviously when you start multiplying this across a large number of providers and a large number of houses is yes, in terms of there's such a volume of change that is required no matter how size you are.
You know what you said at the beginning of this, which, got my ears pricked up about rosters, making sure that we've actually got aligned in our SEALs, having rosters where support workers actually want to work. We're not having a
Yes.
roster of just 3 hours. And I 100% agree with you because at one point when I was rostering for a person we serve in home, they wanted the big hours. They didn't want 2 hours. They wanted the 8 hours. They wanted the nights. They wanted the weekends. They wanted it to be able to make sure that they could have a sustainable life. Like there were some people that I had on the roster that would only work probably 3-4 days, and that was because they had enough hours within their roster that they didn't have to work 7 or 5.
Yeah. And this is saying that's like so like on the surface, what Resolve does is okay, well a big part of what we do is work with teams to get the rosters right and get the claims correct. Okay. But all of these all these activities are very human in nature. Okay. We've got the roster itself, which needs to align to, has to be respectful of the human beings that we're providing support for and the rhythms. Because again, we all have different rhythms and different times we like to wake up and whatever. And not just for the people in the house, but also, as we're talking about here, for the support workers. So even something like the roster creation is actually a very human activity, and it's by no means, I'm not going to say it's nothing akin to actually providing support to the individuals in the house that who deserve the ultimate respect. But everyone plays their part within a disability organization to actually help the person you're providing support with. And even things that feel pretty like mechanical or financial or administrative, like a roster, is actually a deeply human process and needs to be respectful of all the impacts it has on people, both in the house and those providing the support.
It's huge because when you think about it, it does relate to money. So for our support workers, they want a really lovely roster that, they can go live their best life. You got the people that we serve that their money is going into this house that pays for our support workers, pays for the house, pays for living. Then you got a provider hoping after they've paid their support worker that they've got a little bit left over for profit. So when you are going down this path and you're working with providers, without mentioning any names, what is one of your biggest wins that you've had for a provider where they were able to save because they rostered differently?
Yeah. So, but I think the biggest thing for us is about trying to make everyone's lives a bit easier because the reality is SIL is impossible. It's a broken model. If you look at the benchmarking statistics that show you like how successful, because like for those people not in the industry, they look at all the stuff in the media about fraud or NDIS, and they think anyone involved with the NDIS must be making millions of dollars. But if you look at the SIL providers, it's just not the case. Like no one's making money in SIL. Very few people are making money in SIL, and even those that are making money are making very, very little. It's extremely hard, and everyone, I think, to a certain extent, feels like it's just too hard. Like how can we do this? The biggest the thing that really drives what we do is taking a little bit of that pressure off and making everyone's life a little bit easier. Like this is incredibly hard. No SIL provider can do this well. Okay.
Mm.
So stop demanding perfection or even good. It's just not possible. And so the biggest thing for us is being able to listen to our clients like across the board and hear their responses about that their life is easier. So some of our smaller clients, like the owners have been able to take a holiday without not thinking about their business for a week or two. You know what I mean? In terms of it goes to everyone's just their lives are a little bit easier and they understand that they've got someone supporting them. Like that to us, that's the biggest thing. And that's what we're really trying to achieve. From a financial aspect, last year we delivered over $10 million in savings to our clients. Okay, so that gives you an idea of how big this issue is. When I say no one's getting it right, this is the level of rostering issues and claiming issues. And when I'm talking about claiming, I'm talking about providers not getting paid for the support that they're delivering. Like this happens in so many cases in terms of they're providing support and due to breakdowns across the methodology, they're not even getting paid for that, which is part of the reason why everyone's having these difficulties. And so this like rostering claiming workflow is something that's costing providers so much money and causing so much stress. And, you know, people don't love in disability when you talk about money, but this is how we provide support to people. So for us, like that's a lot of money that we've been able to put back into the industry, which then is going to translate into more training for support workers, solving maintenance issues in houses, being able to buy your own transport so you're not having to rely
Yeah.
on third parties. Like money means something in disability, and money is the vehicle to actually providing support to more people and providing a higher quality of level of support to more people as well.
Yeah. So, have you got any tips that you would give anyone when it comes to starting off when they're looking at their rosters before, because like what to do and how to do it better?
I think the most important thing when looking at a roster is understanding that it needs to match the funding available, which sounds pretty obvious, but I think for those that are listening to us to this that are responsible for developing the rosters is I guess my message to them is what you're trying to do is, in our opinion, practically impossible for you to do right. So
Yeah.
my biggest advice is when you're trying to get this right and you can't get it all aligned, give yourself a break because nobody is, if that makes sense. Like there's a lot of times like over the last year where we're working with different organizations and we've identified fundamental issues in terms of rostering and claiming. And those organizations have decided to look at that problem because part of what we do is a health check, which helps
Yeah.
them understand exactly what's going on. And so when they understand the magnitude of what's happening, the first thing they do is go, oh, okay, well, I guess we've got to try to sort this out ourselves. Sometimes it's 2 weeks, sometimes it's 2 months, sometimes it's 6 months, but inevitably we get a phone call um, saying, "Hey, Josh, I think it's time for me to eat humble pie." And it's like, no, there's no humble pie to be eaten because it's impossible. Like you've learned the hard way, but it's impossible to do this. And this goes for like, especially the back end of the organization and for leadership and for rosterers. This is where it comes back to is like, you're trying to do something which nobody can do. So give yourself a break effectively is what I'm trying to say here is that what you're trying to do is something that no one in Australia does well and don't be afraid to ask for help.
When I saw you talk, I must admit, it felt like the penny dropped for me because I was like, "Oh, when was the last time we checked that? When was the like?" And when you were talking about doing a health check, when did we last check that and put it against each other to see whether we're actually matching and we're doing what we said we did? That for me was the like the haha moment for me where I went back to everything. I pulled it apart to make sure that am I just in case, Sarah, because like one report says one thing and the other, and trying to build it in together and to figure out whether I was stuffing it up, and I was stuffing it up.
Everyone does, like in terms of like this is my whole point, is in terms of everybody is, so it's okay, like in terms of
But I would not be the only one out there, like you said, that would admit that they've stuffed it up. Um, is it? So, with some of the people that you work with, you've worked with them for a period of time. For people to use your organization, is it something that they do ongoing, or is it just, or does it have a life cycle?
No, 100%. It's ongoing. So we basically become part of the team. And that's really important to us because again, like our experience, like our hypothesis when we started the business and now our proven experience is that we believe it's impossible for the majority of providers, SIL providers specifically, to roster and claim correctly on an ongoing basis. And it really just comes down to the process is so damn hard. Like the process of
Mm.
creating a roster is so hard to do at volume and scale. And because of the restrictions of the cost model, it's just impossible to actually execute at that level for so long, if that makes sense. And it's proven out, like Adam's experiences out in the world working with a large number of providers, is this isn't a matter of, well, here's a bit of training and consulting and whatever. It's just you cannot do that because of the inherent issues within like rostering and claiming. And so the only reason we're able to do it is because, like we were talking about earlier, is we've got that isolated position, if that makes sense. We're not part of the organization. We can focus only on rostering and claiming without any distractions. And then we can come in and support the organization in terms of this is out working with the team leaders and forming that bridge between the operational side and the corporate side is it's filling in those missing pieces that I was talking about. And in terms of, again, that's been our experience. Like we cannot look at 200 providers and in almost every single instance it not be working. And even when we make organizations aware of the issue and they spend significant resources to try solve it, so everyone gets on board to try solve it, there's a reason they're calling us 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months later, is because like even when you put all your time and attention into it, it's still you still can't get it right, and that's not sustainable. You can't push your whole organization. There's other things that are actually more important. And again, that's just been our lived experience within the industry. Is it's just impossible to get it right by yourself, and you need somebody to support you on that journey.
So, you're a part of all these teams. Does that mean you get invited to a lot of different Christmas parties?
That's actually a really good point. I think we need to be invited to more Christmas parties. That's a very, very valid point. Still never
This
sleep.
time
So
of
in
year,
terms
we
of
don't have one.
yeah, yeah. Well, in most cases, because of us, there's more money in the organisation. But yeah, we should be getting invited to more Christmas parties. That's a very good point.
So, can you tell us a time when you have better systems, clear rosters, leadership, and it actually made a really huge difference to a provider and the people around them? Like, can you think of one story in particular?
100%. So, like I was saying before, is a lot of the work that we do translates into money, okay, which isn't exciting or sexy. But that money then, what does that become? It becomes, like I was talking about before, is a better, like, um, more training opportunities for support workers. What does that mean? That means a better experience for the people in the houses. It translates into solving maintenance issues in the houses. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the people in the houses have a much better environment to live within. That's the stories that we hear from our clients all the time in terms of as we're able to make these improvements and this money is not being lost, as in we're actually claiming for the support that we're delivering, is going to translate into what providers actually care about, which is what? Which is providing better outcomes for the people in the houses. And so that's really what it's all about. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make life easier for the staff and then trying to stop them leaking money and actually let's put it to good use as
Yeah.
opposed to just falling out the organization.
So now that you've been here for a while and you've worked with amongst so many different providers out there, if you had a crystal ball, where do you see the disability space heading in the next couple of years?
I wish I could say there was a light at the end of the tunnel, but there just is not. Like in terms of the reality is the NDIA is already costing um, a significant amount of money. So more money is not going to get poured into the industry. And at the same time, we're seeing from the NDIA more and more regulatory pressure on providers. It's getting harder and harder in terms of, we've got these 3-month funding periods and 1-month funding periods. So we've got and again, all I'm talking about here is specific to the SIL industry. So we've got no one making any money. We've got, from our perspective, a business model that no one can actually operate successfully within. Okay, like the core business engine, which is rostering and claiming, cannot be done. More money is not coming in, and regulatory pressure is increasing. So, like, none of these things sound like things are going to get better for providers. So, when I think about it, I have a lot of concerns for the industry because um, unless you can get this rostering and claiming part right, because that's where you're losing a lot of money, like it then becomes the inverse of what I'm talking about. So if providers are going to keep losing money, well, then what does that mean? That means providers taking shortcuts. That means less training for support workers. It means like maintenance issues go on for longer. So in terms of, I've got grave concerns for the industry as a whole, and then ultimately everything we talk about is about human beings, and this is all going to impact the individuals being provided support. So I know this isn't exactly like a uplifting part of this conversation, but like I don't see a pathway here. And in terms of, I think I would strongly encourage providers that are listening to look for guidance to solve these problems. Okay. And like Resolv is obviously a part of that. I'm obviously like talking up Resolv here, but it's like we're just there to help providers. We provide a lot of guidance and assistance for free. Like in terms of, we help people that aren't still providers. Like in terms of what because we know firsthand how hard it is, we're always there for people to reach out and ask us questions, as well as even guardians and participants. But what's actually happening within SIL, because no one really understands SIL very well. Yeah, we're always there to help people. But yeah, to answer your question, is this going to keep getting harder? A hard thing's going to keep getting harder, and there is no solution in sight.
Does it discriminate between being a small SEAL provider to being a very big one? Because today I did a networking meeting where I met people that had one SEAL house, and then I did a network meeting where I had people that had 20 something SEAL houses. Is there a difference?
It is extremely, extremely hard to be a SIL provider with one house. It is even harder to be a SIL provider with two houses. And then it just keeps getting harder. Like the problem with SIL, and because of the fundamental problems we're talking about, is it doesn't get easier as you get larger. And it should. Like in any other business, it should. You eventually hit economies of scale, things should get easier. But because a lot of this comes down to very, very specialized knowledge and being able to, like, as in creating rosters and claiming, like this fundamental methodology, and being able to do that at scale, which is extremely hard to execute on. And again, I'm really talking about rostering and claiming. It's always going to be hard. And the bigger you get, the harder it is, because just because you've got like more money to spend, this isn't a problem that gets solved by throwing money at it. So yeah, definitely doesn't discriminate. It's the bigger you are, it's harder. And you see that in the benchmarking studies by groups like Ability Roundtable, is the bigger you are effectively, the more money you lose, like on a percentage basis.
Yep. So, so in other words, if you're a small provider listening to this right now, it's okay.
It's
The
hard,
big
and
ones are suffering too.
give yourself give and get no and like I even said at the start, like, give yourself a break. I think everyone puts themselves under a lot of pressure, but you're working within a flawed system that cannot be done well. It's impossible to be done well. So give yourself a break. And when you're looking at the other providers, understand they're doing it just as hard. We never talk to any providers that are like, man, this SIL thing's easy. Like in terms of, it's hard for everybody. So give yourself a break and focus on what you can.
So for people to receive services off you, is it done online? Are you there in person? Are you turning up to my SEAL house? Like, how does it work?
Yeah. So I guess just in general, people can just reach out to us, hit me up on LinkedIn, reach us through our website. Just if you have questions, like, we're more than happy to provide guidance. The primary way we help providers initially is via a health check. Okay. And that's something that we provide completely free of charge. It's something that doesn't take a lot of time. And what it does is we will look at a provider's funding, rostering, and claiming, and help them understand how big of an issue this is within the organization. Because, like I said, on average, it's about 10 to 20,000 plus per participant that's just being leaked out of that organization. And it doesn't matter whether you've got one participant or 1,000 participants, that's going to be a lot of money, relatively speaking. And again, when we're talking money leaking out, that's money that should be going back into training support workers, fixing issues in houses, etc. So yeah, always reach out to us. We're available on LinkedIn, through our website. But yeah, one of the primary ways if you're a SIL provider is via that health check, completely free of charge, no obligation, and it will give you a level of comfort to get an independent analysis around what's happening.
So between you and the other co-founders, do you all have different roles, or do you have the same role?
No.
Or an
So we've got
expertise?
yeah. That's great. No.
Yeah.
So we've got quite a large team like around that works around Australia. When it starts becoming rostering around houses, God forbid I do it. You don't want to hear from me like in terms of like I said, I'm an outsider into the industry. Like I'm good at finances, operations, tech. It's very important to us as an organization that when you're talking to somebody around a roster for a house, you're talking to another support worker. Okay, so in almost every instance that I can think of, when you're talking with a Resolv staff member, especially when it comes to the rostering of houses, you're actually talking to somebody that's actually lived, that's actually done like a transition from house to hospital, like that's gone through the different, that they understand the realities of what it is to be a support worker, and that's really fundamental. It'd be disrespectful for me to, like, I've got so much respect for a support worker and the type of stuff they do. I can't. Why should you listen to me when I'm telling you, oh no, we've got to change a shift? That's ridiculous. In terms of, we make sure that you're always talking with somebody from our team that's actually had lived experience and is coming at this from a compassionate perspective, that's respective of the support worker, respective of the person that we're providing support to, but also to the provider and the overall funding picture we're looking at.
So how do you find your team members?
Yeah, with great difficulty. Like I said, is that there's very, very few people throughout Australia. I honestly feel like the numbers less than 25 that in Australia really deeply understand how to roster correctly for a SEAL house. So we're always we're always on the lookout. But it is a very, very specialized skill set, and it's something very, very difficult to get.
It's difficult also because the variety of CRMs that there are out there, and each CRM presents differently.
Yes, yes. So we've got to spend a lot of time understanding the different, because when we come into an organization, we work with their staff and their systems. So we're not replacing any systems, we're not taking these out or whatever. But yeah, you're right. Life isn't easy because there is so many different CRMs. And so we've spent a lot of time understanding how the different systems work, because that's an essential part for us to provide guidance to everyone on the team.
Yeah. I always felt, especially in positions where I have managed, that if I had my CRM up to date and I had as much information as possible in that CRM, a lot of things would align. Agree or
Yeah, sorry.
disagree?
I'm sorry. 100% agree. However, I'm trying to update my CRM. I've got like 30 other competing priorities. And so
Yep.
so yeah, you're 100% right. Is like for the majority of like CRMs out there, if you're putting good, I hate using the garbage in garbage out, but it's like if you're keeping it up to date, I don't think it's garbage, it's keeping it up to date. Yeah, if you keep your system up to date, in the majority of cases, you're going to be sitting in a decent position. The reality is the amount of effort it requires and the amount of focus it requires to truly keep a CRM up to date it's impossible. You can, because there's not enough. There's too many things to do, too many priorities. Like, you've worked in these roles, as in terms of it's impossible. Okay, it's just
Especially
that's
for
the
a
reality.
smaller one. And the smaller a provider is, the harder it is. And that's because these big providers have somebody that oversees it.
Yes, but even then they're struggling because again, it's not like, I think this is a really important, because like we see the whole gamut. So in terms of like, yes, when you're smaller, everyone's having to wear multiple hats. Whether you're a small provider, whether you're a large provider, is like the amount of effort for each individual worker is more than the time available. That's the reality. That's why we're seeing a lot of these linkages.
So to get in touch with you guys, should they do the health check first, or can they just drop a line on LinkedIn or go straight to
Yeah,
an
yeah, no,
email
like
and say,
literally go to our website, reach out to me on LinkedIn, and start a conversation. The health check doesn't take very long,
yeah.
and yeah, it's something that's very important to us to be a free service that we're offering, because like a big part of what we're trying to do is help educate providers that this is the problem that you need to solve. You need to get your rosters and claims right, and you most likely are not. Because it's easy to chase the more interesting things. We need to get a new system. A new system will solve all our problems. Or this new hire is going to solve all our problems. Or we're going to do this, etc. It's like until your rostering and claiming process has been addressed and you are 100% confident that it's going to be compliant and sustainable on an ongoing basis, doing anything else is putting your business at a disadvantage. And so that's a big reason why we do it for free. It's why whenever we talk about it, I encourage people to reach out to us, is um, we're just trying to help providers understand this is your problem and we can put a dollar value to it. And then when you actually understand that dollar value within your organization, well, you can work out how important it is. But given the fact that, again, on average, we're finding 10 to 20,000 per participant, that's just being that's sitting at the back of the couch in terms of like this should be your number one priority, and this is going to be the mechanism where how you're going to be able to affect so much positive change within your organization.
So, you know, I'm nosy, right?
Yeah, okay.
And I love asking this question. So, have you guys have got anything happening in the next year, or have you got anything that you guys are working towards for Resolve?
Yeah, so I think for us, especially for this year, we're always trying to refine and improve how we serve providers. And a lot of the effort this year is going to be spent on moving even faster to serve our clients. So again, it's not really interesting stuff that, I'm sure people don't come to listen to like process improvements, but like really that's the main focus for us is speed, in terms of the speed at which we serve our clients and the speed at which we're providing information. So a lot of providers are really flying blind in terms of what's actually happening within the business and within the houses from a financial perspective. And very early, like in the next month or two, especially to a lot of our customers, is we're going to be rolling out a lot more information about what's going on within their organization and being able to do it in a way that's extremely fast. So for this year for us is all about speed, which again isn't like a super interesting topic to a lot of people, but to our clients is. And it's something that we're really excited about because
So, does that mean that every, what is it, June, July, when the price guide drops, you are doing your homework?
yeah, well, that part's easy. That part's easy for us. So we've solved those problems in terms of indexation and those sort of things. I think for us, I think we're always looking to try improve ourselves internally, and that's really our main focus this year, is really making sure that we can serve our clients as quickly as possible and giving them the information they need in order to make really good decisions within their business. Because what we're seeing is just very significant growth of providers understanding that they've got fundamental problems and making the difficult step to ask for help and to get somebody to help them. Because like, nobody wants to bring a bunch of third-party bozos into their organization. You know what I mean? In terms of we should be able to do this ourselves, shouldn't we? And the reality is you can't. Okay, but that is the fundamental reality from what we've seen. That's been our lived experience. Yeah, I guess that's one of the main drivers behind really trying to get fast, because of those issues I was talking about before, where things aren't going to get better. What we're doing is seeing more and more organizations taking that brave step about having a conversation and then inviting us in to work alongside their staff. And that's a right that we got to earn. And the faster that we can move, the
So, if you are a new provider watching this and you haven't set up your first house, would it be worth having you on the journey from day dot as they enter new NDIS participants into service?
yeah, like
Could you do that? Like, I was just
yeah,
curious
no,
because
like,
there'll be
we
people.
literally we
Yeah,
literally no we literally
yeah,
do that. So in
yeah.
terms of, but again, is like sometimes it's not very obvious about that the problem that we solve is an actual problem that exists. Does that make sense? So in terms of like, it takes a lot for somebody just stepping into SIL going, I'm not going to know how to roster and claim. I need to get assistance and build that into my function. But yes, those organizations that have done it early will be successful because it's not going to be 1 or 2 years in where it's like, hold on, where's all the
Yeah.
money going in my business? I need to get somebody to do
They're going
that.
to make
Yeah,
a
100%.
decision very quickly, like how to save it too.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Like baking us in at the start makes a whole lot of sense, but again, sometimes you got to go on the journey a little bit to really appreciate how hard it is to get it right.
Yeah.
What was that? Yeah, and many things in life. You gotta learn the hard way. I think sometimes to respect
But did
how
I have
hard.
to kiss that many frogs?
Sometimes you do.
And is there anything that I have missed that you'd love to tell people about?
No, I think one for anyone that's working within a disability organization at any level, think understand that you've got a bloody hard job and that what you do is extremely hard, but extremely meaningful. I think that's something that's really fundamental. I think a lot of people put themselves under pressure. It's like what you do, and we forget you made a decision to work in this industry. You could have worked in the banking industry. You could have like done this. You could have done that. No, you've chosen this as your vocation, and you're actually helping other human beings. I think that's really important. And then at a business level, for those within or running SIL providers, is understand that your rosters likely are wrong, your claiming is wrong, and as a result, you're actually disadvantaging your staff and the people you're providing support to. There's money within your business that can be unlocked that we can actually use for really positive outcomes to drive better support for the people that serving.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
No, thanks for putting up with me.